And now for our listeners, there is a chat room at Blog TV /people / the paranormal world. We have about 350 people right now, viewers of our show here on Blog TV. Our email is theparanormalworld@yahoo.com. Our guest today is Gina. She is a physical medium and remote viewer. Now, the first thing I like to ask everyone on my show is, how did you get in this business and why?
Okay, how I did was I started when I was 4 years old. At that age, I used to see the dead walking around just as regular people, but nobody else saw them but me. And also, as I grew a little bit older, they would communicate with me. But they were never scary, because they looked like people, like they did when they were alive. Okay? That is how I started. The ability that I have was passed down through my father, through his side of the family, because my father had it also.
Okay.
Okay, but as I grew up and I grew older, I lived in probably like 3 haunted houses. I had experiences with shadow people, automatic writing, astral travel, channeling, and then as I got older, I just changed. I just evolved where I am today, what I could do today.
Yeah.
Which is a nice place to be.
Okay, and why do you do what you do?
I do this because everybody has experienced grief in their life from losing a loved one, and the reason that I do it is for closure for those people who couldn't have closure when a loved one passed on, or they just need something. They need that closure. That's why I do it. Yes,
my co-host is Agnes.
Hi. Who's this?
It's Gina on the phone.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Now, one thing I want to, some people were talking, and we talked about this yesterday, that astral travel and remote viewing are 2 separate things.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is very unique because you actually take yourself to the investigation while being somewhere else.
Right, that's correct. I can do that.
Can you explain that a little bit to people that may not know about it as I do or you do?
Okay, what happens is, say if a group is on, they're on an investigation. Okay, I don't know anything about the investigation. I don't know where it is. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know anything. What I am able to do is go to where they are, and I can see the spirits that are there and what they're doing. I did have an interesting case recently where it involved a woman in spirit, and she wanted somebody else to hold the recorder, another guy, because the guy looked like her lost boyfriend. And that actually was a boost to the activity that was going on. It boosted it because that's what she wanted.
Now, when you do remote viewing for people or you channel people, what are the goods and the bads about doing this?
Well, first of all, with channeling, it can be very dangerous because I am allowing the spirit to come into me and do automatic typing, which is just a texting through the phone. I allow them to do that, but I still have control, but the danger is they can take over if they're strong enough and then take the control of me.
Okay.
Okay?
I can understand that.
You can understand that. It's very tricky, but then again, on the upside, it's so helpful because they say things that the person I'm reading for, they know exactly the phrases, the little words, and they just understand it's so much more than if I just did a regular reading.
Okay. Now, what is the difference from your reading from another regular medium reading?
Well, if I channel, which I do most of the time, the person has to be online at that time, and then I tell the spirit, okay, you can come in now and do this. But I didn't tell you what the downside is. But like once in a while, I get a not so nice spirit who jumps in and is not allowed to be doing that.
Yeah, so you have to set boundaries and...
Right, and that did happen to me in the middle of a reading, and a gentleman jumped in, and he started talking, and I was just typing, and the woman is like, Gina, what are you doing? What's going on? So then I looked kind of silly, but that's what really happened.
I totally understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I had that happen to me too.
Yes.
Without permission.
Right. They must have permission, and then, to be honest, after a certain amount of time, they run out of energy anyway, and
Yes.
they leave.
Yes, now, with this kind of work you do, compared to other psychics, what is the difference between the work that you do and others? A couple people are wondering what may be the difference between, say they get a regular reading from one psychic and they want one from you. What would be the difference between your reading and another psychic's readings?
Well, besides the channeling aspect, is I communicate with the dead. I do not do readings. I do not do future readings. Or, if somebody asks me if they're going to have a baby or if things going to work out with their boyfriend, I don't do those kind of readings.
Now, could you do those kind? I mean, is that a psychic that you are, or you're...
No, I'm not that kind of psychic. I'll be straight up. I'm not like that.
Okay.
I'm just communicate with the dead. That's what I do.
Now, when you say spirits, you can contact any spirit, loved ones, spirits in graves, spirits that are haunting homes.
Usually, yes, but they have to come forward to me. I don't summon them. They have to come to me.
Okay. So coming to you is just like them actually making a phone call or knocking on your door.
Right.
They find you and then you help them.
Right. That's exactly what happens.
How do you know when they're coming around? Like, what do you feel when they're approaching you? Before they actually say anything, do you feel anything?
I do feel it's like getting, I'm just going to tell you what it feels like to me.
Okay.
You know, if you were standing at the beach and you got hit by a strong wave, that's
Yes.
what it feels like.
Okay. Because I've never heard anyone tell a story like you're telling, but I've had experiences like this, but mine's just like a buzzing thing in my skin.
Right, like the goosebumps.
It's not even that. It's just like a slight electrical charge.
Right.
And then it happens, and then they're just like, here they are. But
Right.
I can feel them coming.
Everybody is different.
Yeah.
Everybody, it is different experience. That's what I get.
Yeah.
But then recently, besides the wave, sometimes I hear music. I'll hear the same song over and over, then I know somebody's coming through.
That's interesting. It's like somebody's signature or something.
Right, and it was a ridiculous song by ABBA, and I kept hearing it. And
That's
the song
awesome.
was Knowing Me, Knowing You.
Oh, that's so cool.
So every time I heard it, I said, oh, somebody's coming through for somebody.
Right.
Now,
So,
here's a question for you. Have you ever experienced something where somebody came through and you just honestly could not help them? And what did you do in those instances?
yes, of course, because sometimes people, the spirit comes through to me, and I don't know who they belong to. Nobody came forward, or I didn't have a reading that day. And then what I do is on my group page, I will post, I have this woman and she looks like this. She has this particular way, and I have her with me for a couple of days. And usually a person comes, oh, that's my grandmother.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I I make the connection that way. And that's how I really first started readings, because before a medium starts readings, they see all these dead people all the time, especially in our dreams, which most mediums would tell you they'll be around the bed and they talk to you and they say, help me, I have a message for so-and-so, can I have a message? And you don't know what to do. So I started a group on MySpace, and I used to just post the people who I saw, and that's how I started.
That's fairly cool. I like that.
And
that was smart.
I had to make the connection some way. You know, I started to feel sorry for, you know, spirits that they wanted to give them messages. Sometimes they don't want to give messages. Sometimes they just want to say they love somebody and they're okay.
Have you ever had any evilness or bad spirits come through? Or?
Oh, yes, of course. I've been, not so much, I mean, if a person was bad in life, usually when they die and they don't cross or go to where they're supposed to be, yes, it's still nasty. Nasty. They tell me to get out. They tell me, you know, they'll curse at me, tell me I'm no good, I'm a liar, you know, all these things to trick you.
Really? Because I'm
automatically your senses pick up that, oh, this is not a nice person here.
Because I have similar experiences, and it's really good to hear you say this stuff. Because I don't know what to do with it.
Well, if you don't know what to do with it, I mean, it's very, very important, because it's very common, because what these negative entities do is they'll take a person and show up in their house and pretend they're all nicey-nicey, and they, oh, I have a nice spirit in my house. Then they'll disappear for days, and what will happen is I'll get people who write to me, oh, I can't find my spirit, and I want my spirit, that's the draw.
Oh,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then that makes, and I'm like, you know, no, this is not okay to be like this. What's there is not good.
Okay, now there's 2 questions in the chat room.
Okay.
How do you protect yourself from evil spirits? They suggested maybe with special crystals or chats and candles.
Or sage.
How do you yourself protect yourself from the evil spirits from harming you?
Because you have to expect it.
What I do is, first of all, I'm familiar with the candles. I used to dress candles with prayer, and I used to use crystals and stones. What I do is prayer. That's all I use.
Yes.
That's all I use. I mean, in my opinion, if I use something like sage, I'm going to pray into the sage. You put the energy into the sage and then use it. So it's not, that's my opinion.
Okay. Now, have you ever gotten a spirit that will pretend to be something else when it's not?
Oh, all the time, yes.
And how do you confront the spirit? And let me give a little heads up to our audience. Demonic energies like demons and other energies can reflect. And some people know the difference. How do you know the difference from the evil spirit and the good spirit?
How I know the difference, and this is going to sound really strange, is when I look at the face of the spirit, the mouth, when they're not good at all, they have all these funky teeth, like sharp teeth.
Oh.
That's how I know the difference.
Okay.
Like sometimes too, it looks like they're wearing a mask of a child, and then I see the teeth.
Okay.
Because a lot of times I know they'll pretend that they are a child, and they're not.
So the old saying, it's a masked spirit, actually is kind of true in this case.
That's how I see it. But all mediums see it differently.
Yes. Now, you and I were talking yesterday, and you said you had a rather strange spiritual guide.
Yes, I do have.
Can we go into a little bit of that?
Okay, sure. You mean the elemental guide?
Yeah,
Just one.
well, you said you had some strange spiritual guides, and I thought it was kind of unique that guides also help you. And I thought it was kind of unique what kind of guides you have.
Right. I have one elemental guide. That a good friend of mine. I didn't know what it was because she was actually made. I was doing a reading for somebody, and she came through the window I saw, and she was made out of wood. And this really sounds crazy because I said, why is her skin like bark? I saw her face and everything, and she was made of wood. And she creaks like you would think how a wooden floor creaks. And she was actually an elemental spirit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, the elementals are, air,
Wood,
water, fire,
metal.
and then some come from wood.
Wow.
And
So that would be an earth element.
right. So basically, what she did is when I was a child, I used to love to play in the woods.
Mhm.
So she brought me to the woods, which anybody who has experience with spirit guides, they will bring you to a place in nature like the open field or the woods or somewhere where it's nice and open,
Mhm.
because you're going to experience something that you never experienced before, and they don't want anything to interfere with that. And then I was lucky enough because she brought my father to me, and my father passed over 10 years ago, and I don't see him that often. I also saw my grandmother. She brought them, and she says, because of what you do, I'm going to bring them to you, and this is why you saw me. And I said, okay.
Okay. Now, you also said something about a demonic spirit guide as well.
Yes, I have a demonic guide who I see, and I don't bother with him too much because he wants everything. Like, if I know somebody has, I do cleansings for people. Mm-hmm. So if I know somebody has a true demon, I call upon him to take it back.
Okay.
And it becomes a game sometimes because, he'll say, I don't want to take it back yet, or it's not time yet, or why should I do this for you? And I'm like, please, just take it back. Come on. And then usually he takes it back. As long as I leave certain buildings and things that he wants for himself. That's another story. But it's still big. I don't touch them much because I know that's where the big portals are. I don't want to go. I don't want to do that.
Okay, now can you teach what you do to others, or is this something that's very unique that's just a gift for you?
No, I mentor a lot of people the best that I can to my ability. I can do it because you have to take baby steps, and everything has to come at a natural flow. Everything has to flow very naturally. You can't push it, you can't press it, you just can't force it.
Gina?
Yes.
Are you taking in more clients?
Yeah, Agnes has for years wanted to work under somebody, and so have I.
Well, I help a lot of people. I mean, if they have, here's an example.
Okay.
Like somebody said to me, I have to contact my spirit guides. I said, listen, you just leave them alone. If they want you for something, they'll contact you.
That's exactly
I never
it.
contact mine. I don't want to bother them. They come to me if something is that important. But imagine yourself sitting in a busy mall with like 200 people walking around.
Yep.
It's all in the focus. If you could focus in on one person and that one person's feelings, you're doing good.
I don't think I've ever been to a mall with 200 people.
Well, I live on Long Island. So
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy because we all really started empaths, picking up on other people's feelings.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's huge with me. I never heard anyone talk like you.
I'm a little bit,
No.
Yeah, Gina is.
I understand what you're saying. Because I'm the same way. I feel
Like
everything.
you can look at a person, and that's how it starts. I can look at a person. I know what they're feeling. I know what some of the things they've been through in their
Yes,
life.
exactly.
In the focusing, because if you start getting approached by spirits, you can have 20 come at you. What are you going to do if you can't focus?
And it sucks the life out of you.
Yes, it gets very draining.
Yes.
Yes, now, this is another question. How do you take care of yourself so you don't get sick, drained,
Yes.
upset,
You need
depressed?
to rest a lot when that happens.
Well, this is what I do. I know I'm doing this for a while, so I know what my limits are, and I know when I just have to just stop
Right.
and just pull back and just like watch something stupid on TV or read.
Yes. Like a mental
Or-
escape.
Right, just not to deal with it. If I get sick with like the flu or something, I won't be on like site or anything.
Exactly. I totally understand that also.
Now, you do not do this for a profession. You
No.
do this as kind of like a service to others to help them.
It's
Right.
a love thing.
It's
Yeah,
giving back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Agnes said, out of love, really.
Right, and I do the past lives also. That's all new for me. I just really started doing that.
Because I've heard of a lot of mediums and psychics after they do readings or a spirit comes into their body, they're just drained and sick, and it takes everything out of them.
Sometimes you get sick.
Well, you can't, but that's up to you and how
Yeah.
strong you are, and you have to know what your limits are.
Right.
Yeah.
But as you know, with me though, I'm understanding what you're saying, but I understand, like, I don't know how to fight back, but I'm
But
learning.
You don't, not yet, but
Right.
you learn, it develops.
Right. When did you first know that you had something that what you were different?
When I was since I'm a little kid.
See, that's the same way.
I was very different, and you have to understand, I was born in 1964, and my parents were not hippies.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if my parents were hippies, maybe they understood some stuff.
Right. Is it hereditary in your family? Like, are there
Yes,
other?
it comes from my father's side. My
Okay.
father was a sensitive.
Okay. Because I mean, your story sounds like mine.
Right. Most of our stories are the same.
Because I knew since I was like, maybe 13, 14 months old.
Right.
And I was just like, somebody help me. Because I'm like, I'm seeing things and nobody else sees what I see.
Right.
Or I
But
feel-
it's not
yeah.
only the seeing, it's the feeling.
The feeling, exactly. And that's why I always tell us, like, I feel everything.
Right. And you have to get rid of that because that becomes junk. If you
No.
don't get rid of that, all those feelings, that's
Right.
what depresses people.
I know.
It brings them way down. Then you can't read or anything.
Right.
And you can't, it will take your ability away to function in normal life. You have to just throw it away.
That's why I go hide.
Right.
Sometimes I just go and have that mental vacation, as you say. Just something that's totally
Right.
unrelated to what I was doing. And I feel
Right.
like $1,000,000 after that. Completely right.
But it can make you very tired. Like today on my site, I did an open read, or I did it yesterday, where just ask one question. And I didn't know it was going to be so busy. And I said, I had to take a nap for like half an hour. I was like, why did I have to do this today? Because I knew it was going to be on tonight.
Or you want to eat a steak or something. Because you feel like you work like a lumberjack or something.
I've never heard of it put that
It's
way, but
true sometimes. You know what I'm saying, right?
No, I understand, because you get, to me personally, like I will get very tired, and if I could just close my eyes, that was my own fault. I shouldn't have opened that up like yesterday. I shouldn't have done it. I should have waited a couple of days.
now are you involved in the community on Facebook and other psychic communities we see around? And
Right now, just on Facebook.
just now, okay. And if somebody wanted to have a reading from you, a free reading, or for you to help them, do you have some kind of contact or a way for somebody to get in touch with you for that?
Well, usually they just contact me through Facebook, because because I jump around from different groups.
Okay.
Like, I have my own group. And then sometimes when I visit these other groups, psychic groups or paranormal groups, I will reach out to people if I see that they need help. I'll friend them or send them a message saying, I'll help you, I'll reach for you. Just write me back if you want that, because I need their permission before I do it.
Right.
That's another thing. You need their permission. I can't automatically just start doing it.
Okay, now let's get on to remote viewing.
Okay.
Some of your cases, you actually go without leaving your house or where you're at. You actually go to the case with the people.
Exactly.
And can you explain how this is done for some of the people, for other investigators that may like to know how this is done?
Well, it's just there are a lot of psychics that help teams that do it. So how do I explain that I do it? Okay, what I do is I just start picturing in my mind.
Okay.
Because it's all through usually texting. If they have a photograph, I could go right there. I could go right there.
So use an example. You could just take a photographs of the rooms in the house.
Or just one. This way I could feel it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I get that impression and I could just go there.
And
in my mind, I just walk around or I turn around.
Right.
And I just start looking, and usually they come up to me, who's ever in the house. I can see what's going on.
you can know the house by looking at a picture of just a part of somebody's house.
Yes.
Can you explain how that's done? Because that's very unique. I mean,
you know what it is? I started to read photographs for paranormal teams.
Okay.
And people always say, orbs, orbs, orbs. I never look at the orbs, ever. Ever. I just go, I don't even look at them. I'm looking beyond the orbs. I'm looking at, what's really going on.
That's good.
Sometimes I feel nothing, and then sometimes as I look around, spirit, I'll see a man or a woman or whoever. Sometimes I see blood or suicides. It all depends.
Right.
Okay. Now, when you see some of these things, what is the process after that? By text, by computer? You send them a report?
Usually I'm sending messages on Facebook. Some are open. So,
Okay.
if I read for a group, you can see my reading. Some groups want to keep me private and keep me to the side because they have a psychic on their group and they don't want that psychic to know, and I do it anyway. And I keep it on the side to sit through messages. Also,
Okay.
you have to understand a lot of places have layers of time. It's like a layer cake.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a house that was built 5 years ago. But what happened to the land before? Was there a fire? Was there tragedy? Was there, who knows?
Gosh.
Nobody knows until I read it.
I totally understand what you're saying. You see the history. Even though something's just brand new, you see history already.
And I have to have, now also I read items. We were talking about this, Wade. I need the person to have what the history is of the house, of the land. I am not going to put my energy in if they're going to tell me they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know the history behind investigations, and we try to do that as well. We try to get the history. We try to get any information that would help the case.
Right.
I mean, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the house, maybe 2 houses down the street had a murder or something. It's always good to know what you're going into, what the area, what the town's history was.
Right, exactly. You need something, this way, that's called my validation. This way they can validate what I'm saying, and nobody's wasting any time. The same thing if I read an item, who owned the item or what happened, it has to be validated.
the physicals and the people, and maybe, you know, the road. And what happens on the road? Like, who travels on this road? What's it for?
You have people that I've seen spirits that have been in car accidents, and where the car accident has, they've walked into other houses.
Right, because they visited.
On that road. But I've seen, you know, I see them walk through the front door. That's how I know. Oh, well, this person didn't live there. They came in. They just walked in.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that happens all the time.
That's amazing.
So it just happens.
Yep. It does.
Now, when we're talking about cases where you're asked to come on to them, how would somebody be able to find you to help them with a case?
Well, right now, either they could email me or they could reach me by message through Facebook.
So basically, all they would have to do is just contact you, and you would be able to help them with a case.
I say, I have this case, and, you know, what do you think? I've been asked for a couple of groups, you know, where should I stand in the house, or what questions should I ask?
That's very gracious of you.
Now, you can do any establishment, so to speak. You could do a church, you could do a building, you could do a cemetery.
They're all the same to me.
Yeah.
Right. Is there something cool that happens in your life when it's your routine throughout the day and you just see the same thing or same person all the time? Because they're like on the same thing or same routine as you. You know what I mean?
If I saw somebody who passed?
Yeah.
And if they're with me all the time?
Well, yeah, because you're in the same place that they are, like, you know, on their schedule also.
Well, you mean you're talking about like a residual kind
yes.
of energy?
Yes.
The residual is when a person dies and they just keep doing what they did in their lifetime over and over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's they do have residual hauntings. Just because that person doesn't know that they really passed.
Okay.
But like as far as me seeing them during the day, they really don't bother me as much because it's a respect issue. If I respect them, they have to respect me and my space. They can't bother me when I'm sleeping and yell in my ear and stuff because I went through enough. Just don't want that. So no, you're not allowed to do that because I won't help you.
So they're not. So they're not just friendly and they come in passing and they just say hi because I know you can see me.
No, not really. No.
Okay.
They come for a purpose usually because they want to find a loved one and they want a message. But I noticed, I have to be honest, this is something new. I noticed that some of them want their stories told, that they've been killed and things have happened to them, and they want, once their stories are out, they're gone from the place.
Yeah, because I know 2 cases where that kind of service would probably be needed.
Right. That's okay.
One was a suicide that went wrong because they didn't want to die at the end, but they ended up doing themselves in anyway. You know what I mean? And that's pretty sad. That's very sad, and they don't know that they're really dead yet.
Well, it's not. Suicide is very tricky because life is a gift, and if you take that away, you have a lot of work to do to make up when you did that. It's all about forgiveness. You have to forgive yourself, and they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
On the other side.
Okay.
If they make it to the other side.
Yeah, if they make it to the other side, once they're there, they have a lot of work to do, and they usually help a lot of human beings down here.
Now, I and you were talking, and you and I both believe the theory that some do not pass on to heaven. There's some that go to hell.
That's correct.
And I received a question a while back. Could you remote view to heaven or hell and help somebody redeem themselves?
Well, in my opinion, even if a person goes to hell, okay, they work themselves up to these different levels so they could work themselves up into the light. They have to still, but it's work for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have to do whatever they're told to do. Is it being helping humans? Whatever they have to do, that's what they have to do. I don't know exactly because they can't tell me everything.
Okay.
But it kind of makes sense to me. They have to work themselves up. It's like going to school.
You have to earn it.
Right, like starting in like kindergarten.
Right.
You have to earn it. If you screwed up, you go back.
Oh, well, that's like their own private hell then. You know?
It's a private hell, but they know what their goal is.
Right, exactly.
Because I also believe there's a book of judgment. Okay?
Yeah.
I believe in that. I saw it myself. I seen it because I had a near-death experience when I died. So I saw it.
Wow.
I never believed in that at all.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's a real story.
You're welcome.
Yes. Now, we were talking yesterday about cases and unity, and how do you feel about the unity thing going around? And have you worked with other people in the unity field, in the unity community?
Yes, with the Para Unity, yes, I work with groups.
Yeah.
And I believe it's a wonderful thing. It would be perfect, like anything else, if it worked.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of arguing going on all the time. That's the sad part.
You have to focus on what you're there for, or why you're here, or why you jumped into this.
Right. And why you're there and why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a lot of, sometimes it's name calling, this, backstabbing. You know, I'm not into that drama stuff.
No.
I think everybody should work together for the same cause. I think all people like myself, like a medium, we should all work together, and nobody's better than anybody else.
No.
Just all work together.
Everyone's unique.
Right,
Everyone.
But I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't always work that way. I mean, I work with other mediums all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we read, sometimes I'll be with another person, and we do, we'll read one person.
Right.
And it's really good because our energies kind of mesh together.
Right, it's a very special thing also.
Right, and it's really interesting. And, in fact, I'm mentoring somebody, and I had him, we helped the murder victim, and the murder victim didn't cross, but we helped her get to where she was supposed to be. And he never experienced that.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so once he did, he's like, this is really intense, I said, yeah, but you don't do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But...
Yes, now, if you want to get into some of your cases, I realize that we all have where we keep stuff confidential, but is there any good cases you've done and bad cases you can remember?
The most interesting case that I ever worked on was from a couple of years ago. And the woman who bought the house, now I didn't know any of this, but the house was built on a cemetery in Virginia. And she contacted me, and she had no group or anybody come in. And she said, I'm having some trouble, and so I did the reading, and I said, there's so many people, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. I saw the cemetery, but I said the garage, where her garage was a special place, and it was really nasty, because that's where there was a murderer was buried there, she found out, under her garage.
Yeah.
So, then she told me, well, you're right, the house was built on a cemetery, and the garage we can't even go into, it's dark, it's this and that. So, I just found that very interesting. It's like, why would they build a house? She didn't even know it till she found some stones in her backyard.
Oh my goodness.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Oh my gosh.
I thought that was like insane. So I helped her clear whatever she had to get cleared up, which was especially in the garage.
She was very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what especially was that the murder of, as you know, Wade, some evil spirit to be bound.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I had to do with him. So, but that was years ago.
I'd like to reiterate one of the other questions about, has there ever been cases where you could not work on? The question was, has you ever had a spirit that you could not work with? But has there been any cases like that where you could not work with it, you could not work with the spirit, or the location was bad?
Yes, of course, because if the spirit is not going, sometimes they don't communicate with me. So I can't do anything then. I can't force anything. So I can't do anything with that. I mean, maybe they'll come back. What happens usually is one person comes through. Say I'm doing a private reading, one person comes through, and then that one person brings through 3 or 4 people. Yeah. Like a train.
Yeah.
Once, and then the person who wants to speak the most through. So sometimes people are disappointed. They get closure from a person, but they don't get the right person because somebody who's been waiting for so long.
Yeah.
They take the whole show. That's a lot. I can't help that.
I've had that experience also. Like there's all these people, spirits, whatever, and one's like the big one or the strong one, and he just bulldozes everyone over and like, I'm here, pay attention to me, you know?
Right, well, you pay attention to him, let him speak, you communicate with him, and then you thank him and say thank you, and then hopefully he moves away.
Yeah.
And then you could get to the other people.
Yay.
And there's been places that I'm like, I'm not going, I'm not reading that place.
And what would happen to do that? Why would you not read a place?
Because, for example, there was one place that I knew was very bad, and it was once a slaughterhouse, and I don't like when the blood goes into the earth. That's just something that I feel that it gets fed. And there was lots of murders and suicides in the building, and there was a lot of trouble, and I just said, this is way too strong for me.
It's too much.
I can't deal with it.
Yeah, you could tell it's too much.
It was too much for me.
Right.
Maybe somebody else, they could do it, but I know my extent and what I could do. If I can't do it, I will try to find somebody else to help the person.
Now, has there ever been cases where it's been extensive, like you're still working on them to try to get, or is there a time frame in which you try to get the case resolved? You try to work on everything?
No, there's no time frame. I mean, basically, if it's a private home, the homeowners want it done right away. And I understand that part. As you well know, like they want to know exactly what's going on, why it's going on, and when is it going to stop. Private readings, I mean, there's no time limit because on the other side there is no time. There's no sense of time. That part is all over.
Right. So they're always there.
And again, another question from the room. We're doing questions from rooms. That's right fine. Now. Can ghosts physically talk?
It's mostly, alright, I'm going to be honest, when I do the readings, it's telepathically. But can they physically talk? Yes, because audibly, I hear them all the time. That's me, like out loud. But, so yes, they can talk, but they also need that energy to talk. That takes energy. And if they draw it from something electrical, or whatever they want to do, or batteries, that's their problem if they want to talk out loud. But, yes, they can.
Now here's another one. How can you tell the difference between a human spirit and a demonic spirit?
Well, as I said before, they will appear to me not in demonic form. They will appear to me as like a child, and it looks like they have a mask on, and I always know by the teeth. That's just how I know.
Yeah.
It sounds strange, but it's just one of those things that's just how I know. I mean, have I seen what a demon looks like? Yes. They don't try to scare me and say, this is what I look like. Because basically, I'm not afraid of them. So, I'm just not afraid.
Now, here's my next question for you, and a room question. Have you ever been afraid of a case where you didn't want to work on it, or they asked afraid of a location, or maybe a spirit?
Afraid is that one case that I had that was a slaughterhouse. I did not like that.
Okay.
Can you refuse a case?
Sure I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could say, no, I don't, and I have, I don't feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
This is the reason why you don't feel comfortable. I give the reason, and I'll get somebody to help you, yes.
And that's good that you do that. You find somebody that you know and trust that would be able to do that.
Well, and doing private readings also, I know when a person goes around asking for readings from everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of bothers me, and a lot of those people I don't read because they have a lot of doorways open as it is.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, what you're talking about, to relate to our listeners, is people will call psychics like they go to doctors for the flu.
Oh, yeah, they get addicted.
Yeah,
They get
it's...
addicted. And the mediums or the psychics or whoever, we open up a doorway to the other side. That has to be shut when we're done. And a lot of these psychics and mediums do not know how to close that door. So when you go to read the person, it's like an apartment complex with all these doors open.
You could see that.
Yeah, I see that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want that. I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. I know you get a lot of readings, so I'm just, I'm sorry I can't help you.
That must be fun when you actually say that to that person that you know that.
Well,
It's like, how do you know?
They react. Usually they tell me off, but that's okay too because that's their opinion. So I'm being honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'd rather be honest than say, yeah, let me read you too. And, I just don't. When you read somebody who gets a lot of readings, it's going to be off anyway.
Right.
Because you have a lot going on because there's going to be a lot of spirits around that are not supposed to be there anyway from the doors being open.
And it comes across
Yes,
noisy.
and to reiterate to our listeners, there is times when people can open stuff up. I've talked about this before.
Oh,
and let in things like demonic spirits.
Yes.
Open themselves up to possessions. Open themselves up to being hurt by the by a spirit or entity. Have you yourself ever been hurt by any spirits or anything?
When I was a child, there was a shadow person, and the shadow, I must have been about 6 or 7, because the shadow person told me not to eat. That it would be, the shadow person told me not to eat because everything I would eat, I would choke on, and I would die. Now, what I went through now this is serious, when I went through that, that's a common thing that mediums as children go through. Now we know it's common. Years ago, my mother just took me to all the doctors that she could because I wouldn't eat. Okay?
Wow.
That was just how that went.
That's interesting.
But I've never been pushed. I've never been scratched. And I've never been pushed. I've never been slapped. Nothing like that.
Because what, you think there's some kind of understanding there? You think?
I just never have been.
Okay.
I don't know why. I would get very angry if somebody did that.
Mm-hmm.
but opening the doorways, as Wade was saying, people don't realize, and I tried to, doing EVPs, even taking pictures, investigating your own house, Ouija boards, all those tools, the pendulum, the tarot cards, all those things, if you don't know how to use them the proper way, will open the doorway. I will never change my mind on that.
That's very true. I totally agree.
I have been pushed and hurt. Well, not necessarily hurt, but I'm going to say manipulated on cases involving demons.
Right.
I have done much work in the church on, as you know,
Yes.
on demons and helping people be released from demon oppression.
Yes.
And I have been hit. I've been scratched. I've been pushed, kicked, slammed through things.
Wow.
I've never been hurt where it affected my personal life or my body itself, as in like nothing has gotten into me, nothing has gotten to my, personal space, so to speak. Now I can only imagine you doing a good case and finding out it's evil. Are cases based on things like that, where you could get involved in a case and something else would come into play, sort of speaking?
Well, that's an interesting question, because what usually happens is, even though places are cleared, they're cleansed, okay? Say the demon leaves, okay? And then he says, well, I'm not really gone, but I'm going to come back with my friends.
Yeah.
And I have seen that happen a lot now. That they leave, it's probably been happening for thousands of years. I don't even know, but I'm just saying I see it a lot now. And then they bring their friends.
Yeah.
And you're talking about oppression, depression, addictions, all of these things, to me, are from unclean spirits, a lot of them.
Yeah.
To the point that you can't function a normal life, then there's something is wrong.
Okay. That's also good to know.
Well, there are some people out there that just can't function because they choose not to.
Right.
Well, they choose not to do it. They don't, they choose to be stupid in their lifestyle or whatever, and that's their choice. Mm-hmm. However, as you said, demons and evil spirits, so to speak, can harm a person's life.
Well, they want to weaken a person. The weaker the person, the deeper that they get.
Yeah. And there's not just one can occupy a body. I've seen up to 5.
Oh, yes, of course, because each one has a certain purpose.
Yeah, now the Bible speaks of legions of them affecting you, but I personally have only seen 5 affect a person.
Right.
Wow.
I've heard up to 100 can occupy a body before the person starts having mental breakdowns and the body starts to become physically affected. Now, I'm not sure if that's true. I've never met somebody in that
no, I haven't either.
Instance, but, I have heard cases where people have just loads and loads of things have come out of people, and they've totally changed afterwards.
Right, that's true.
I mean, could it be that the person doesn't even care?
I've seen people who have not cared and function very well. Yeah,
or they don't know.
Yeah, well, her question was, can people honestly just say, I have these evil spirits and demons attached to me and not care? The proper answer is yes. However, there's probably other factors with that, going with how they believe and what they're doing and how the spirits and demons got into them. Because if somebody does not care they're around and they're not affecting the person, it's kind of like a bee to a flower. If the flower is not going to be pollinated and has no use, the bee's not going to get attracted to it.
Exactly.
I've also seen things where people have been hurt by demons in their life, not necessarily themselves. Their life has been affected.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you're the type of person that goes into helping them get rid of these spirits.
Yes, I've done it.
You've done it?
Yeah.
Because I've only done it with the evil spirits, but I do know of some mediums and stuff that helps spirits leave places.
Yes.
Cleanses them, so the spirit clears them.
Right. And it's an ongoing, what it is too, excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process. In other words, I'll take a morning and I'll go through all the places that I cleared recently, and then I'll flush it through with, prayer and white light, just to keep it that way.
Yeah, because sometimes, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times doesn't completely,
I don't even tell the homeowner or the person. I don't even tell them. I just do it.
Is there something in your gut that actually just tells you maybe I should go back or it's time?
No, what it is, if that space is open and that's what I'm doing, I'll just go, whoever comes to mind, and I'll do it.
Okay.
Now, have you ever worked on a case where there's been no results? This is another question from the room. Where you've actually spent all your time and just nothing happened?
Yes, that has happened. That has happened. I mean, I make mistakes too. Well, I haven't worked on cases where, like, the entity or whatever is there has gotten worse. That has not happened.
No, but I meant like you've worked, you go there, you do something, and just nothing happens. It's
Just
almost
nothing
like you
happens.
weren't even there.
Right. Once in a while I'll have a case and I'll be like, well, I helped, of course, these people, which I really don't do anything. That's all up to angels and God. I just stand there. And then they'll be like, oh, well, they're still walking around my house. They don't even let me know.
Yeah.
Like I'll find them on Facebook and I'm like, no, you should have told me. Because in my opinion, everybody who crosses should be crossed all the way where they're supposed to go into the light.
Yes, there is I don't know if it's a dimension or rift or spot or area where the spirit could go into, and all of a sudden when you're done, turn around and walk back out.
Right.
I've heard of this before.
Right. Now, there's certain things as portals. Portals are opened. Either we open them or due to things in the earth itself, they can open due to the right circumstances. So that's another thing, and that's what they could cross very easy and travel in and out the way they want to.
Now, when you say traveling, spirits actually move to places? I mean, this has been an awfully good discussion on, you go to one place and the spirit's there, and then you go to another, and...
What a spirit told me is they just have to think it. Actually, with my father, he says all he has to do is think it, and he's there.
So it would be like thinking you're in the mall, and you're now in the mall walking around with people.
If he wanted to.
If
he was allowed to.
Okay, when you say allowed, is there things that do not, that make it so they cannot go places?
Well, if they're working on certain things to do with how they treated themselves in their lifetime, and they're working on that, then they're not allowed to do everything that they want to do.
Another question from the room is, how long before somebody goes over?
Oh, this is a great question. I love this question.
Because I often wonder this too. However, I've heard instantly. I've heard it takes time.
Yes, they are allowed. You are allowed. Again, my father told me before he died, he says, I am going to die. And he says, he says, we're all allowed to stay here for 2 weeks. In other words, they could go to the funeral, and because the families grieve, they could stay with us for 2 weeks before they actually like they know they're going to cross over, but they could stay very close to us for 2 weeks. That's why people feel them so closely. You know, you could smell them, you could feel them hugging you, or touching your hair. They're very, very strong, and that's what people. I always get asked this question: when did you read? Like my mother passed away yesterday. I could read in a snap that was because the mother is still here. She's very strong.
Now, when you speak of things sometimes going wrong, like making mistakes, what do you mean by? Because I've never heard of a psychic admitting to mistakes. However,
of course I make mistakes.
Well, I mean, I've never gone on this topic before, but since you brought it up, I might as well ask: what kind of mistakes can go wrong? I know, for instance, for our listeners, I'll give an example. I'm helping somebody have a demon released from them. I could get hurt. The person could. The ultimate thing is they could die, but that's never happened that I know of, that I've seen. The person could hurt themselves. The person could have ill mental effects. I could be hurt very badly. What are the mistakes that could happen?
Well, as far as the medium reading, like when I read?
Well, you said you make mistakes. Would any of your work, if a mistake happens, what would they be? And what could happen?
I would read incorrectly, or I would get names wrong, which I get names wrong frequently because I am not good with names, and I tell everybody that.
Yeah.
It's not, whatever door I open, I close immediately so nothing else could come through, or as far as the cases that I worked, like as paranormal cases, again, reading wrong, or seeing wrong, or hearing wrong, those things happen. Or sometimes I see things, this happens very frequently, I see things, but then a dead person will be talking to me, and then it doesn't belong to the person I'm reading. It belongs to two people who are going to come along.
Yeah.
And I can't help that. If that just happened to me yesterday, I can't help that happens. I just read it for the wrong person. I saw the spirit. I saw them for the wrong person.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
I mean, I know that is true, that mediums never say they're wrong. Or I always see mediums say, hey, yeah, I read 110%. Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, I've seen mediums read 100%, but they never admit when stuff is wrong. I've seen mediums have wrong effects. What effects on a case now could this hold?
Well, on a case, if I angered a spirit, the consequences of that, it could be enormous on the family itself. Or I can open a door and have other negative entities come through without my knowledge, without me even recognizing what I'm doing, and that would be like a big fiesta.
Ugh.
So, I mean, that would be horrible.
Now, when you anger spirits, this is just like angering somebody in life, or can they do other things?
Well, it depends what type of... I mean, if we're going to go into demonic, they are very tricky and they play a lot of head games.
Yeah, I meant just a regular spirit.
I know that. So if we're talking about... There's a difference in spirits now, because there's something called an advanced spirit.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You know what that is?
I kind of do, but for our audience, let's explain it to them.
An advanced spirit is somebody who's been gone for a long time, and they're very strong. Those spirits can move things. They can mimic people who are living. That's what they do.
But they would be more or less an evil entity than they would something of a spirit.
No, sometimes they're just a regular spirit. It's just that they've watched and learned for so long, focused in on their energy on, say, moving objects.
So you can more or less tell the age of the spirit based on its skills.
Right, Right, exactly. Some of them are just, hanging around and you smell them and
Yeah.
you get a little breeze or something like that.
Okay. And they can do that too, just to give you an aroma.
Yes, they can. But the advanced ones can move objects and they're stronger.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard of these things. We have levels for spirits, and what she's saying
Right.
is that a spirit could actually be powerful enough to start manipulating its environment.
Okay.
Exactly.
Let's say like the old lady is haunting your house theory. However, she's in the rocking chair, and every day the rocking chair, you hear it moved across the floor.
Okay.
The TV comes on, and you see papers being moved.
Okay.
This is what, we don't really associate with advanced or minor spirits.
Mhm.
Spirits right across the line. However, there are some people in some groups, and like Gina, who have to know, is it advanced, is it minor, is it evil, is it good, is it an entity versus a demon versus a poltergeist versus a possessive spirit.
Mhm.
So for our listeners, to make it easier for them, the advanced spirit would be one that could manipulate the environment very well without having to draw energy from something.
And affects your senses.
Yeah.
You could see it.
It's a lot of the
smell
spirits that we have on our cases where we go and stuff is moved, but yet none of our equipment is drained. It didn't need to drain it because it's so powerful. It doesn't need to draw it from somewhere else. It can do it by itself.
So it can even whisper in your ear then.
It's an intelligence.
Yes.
It has an intelligence. It's the intelligence level, too.
Yes, there's also an intelligence level with the spirits. You have really what humans would be high IQ'd spirits or low IQ'd spirits. A lot of the higher, like what she calls advanced spirits, are ones that could actually throw objects at you, hurt you.
Or just do silly things around your house to let you know they're here.
Well,
just close a door, actually latch it.
Yes,
and open the door.
But we're talking more or less like move your bed across the room while you're in it, trying to deal without making the lights flicker, without drawing something to make them that powerful. They're already that powerful.
That's
kind of like
amazing.
the vampire theory that the vampire is so powerful it can do whatever it wants.
Right.
Where a minor vampire would not be able to turn into mist at will. It would have to, drink blood before it turns into mist.
Okay, that's very interesting.
But we never use a scale level, Gina, on our cases. However, people like yourself or our listeners may have to know what they're dealing with for the case and how to react to them. And I'm sure there's a way that you would react to an advanced spirit, as you call it, compared to a minor spirit, right?
Well, because the interaction is totally different, because the intelligence level that it's at is automatically, in your face type. Like, it gets in my face.
Yeah.
In my face, like, this is mine. I don't like you. I never heard the term get out, I have to be honest. This is mine. This is what I'm doing, and this is why I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to tell me all these things without me having to ask questions.
Because it's bold now.
Because they're intelligent.
Right.
They're just smarter.
We have a question from the room. Have you ever been attacked by these advanced spirits?
Have I been attacked? No.
Yeah, okay. Now, I've never had a spirit directly from a case try to attack me. I've had things thrown at me. I've had my body temperature become extremely cold. I've had the room become extremely hot.
Right, I've had hot and cold. I've experienced that.
Now, for demons and, demonic entities and demons, I have been thrown, I have been attacked.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
But demons and spirits are really two different things. For me, they're two different things.
Yes, they are.
Now, have you ever dealt directly with one case over another that would have these type of spirits in it, And do you work the same with them, or do you work differently with them?
You mean if it was a demonic?
Well, the way I'm reading the question is from the room is, do you work the same with one spirit as you do another? What I assume they're asking is, do you work the same with an advanced spirit compared to a minor spirit?
What I do is I begin the same with everybody. That's what I do, and I start the read. And when I begin the read, I start to see what's going on. That's what I do. I treat everybody the same in the beginning until it starts to unravel itself. Because the people are not going to tell me what's going on. It's my, I don't want to say job, that sounds corny, but it's what I have to do is tell them what's going on. Somebody's banging your pots, you're finding, you're finding water in the middle of the floor. It's not coming from anything. What I tell them, that's their validation. Oh, okay, she's right. Now, I see the spirits doing that, and that's how I tell the person.
So you actually physically see the spirit with the environment.
They'll show me what they do. That's how I tell the person.
Now, here's an interesting question. Has your physical energy ever been detected at a place?
Oh, yeah, like they know you're coming.
For instance, if she said she was going to do a remote viewing here where we are right now,
okay,
I could actually, with scientific instruments, EMF meters, video camera, I could actually see her energy here.
Yes. Now, that's a very good question, because I'm going to tell you what happened. Through Facebook, I helped a group, and they had the ghost box on. And through the ghost box, I told them, there's two spirits in your home. This is what happened. These are the questions you're going to ask. The woman in spirit thought she was Marilyn Monroe. Mention Marilyn Monroe. Tell her she's beautiful, yada, yada, yada. They put the ghost box on, and the ghost box says, Gina Giasi in Floral Park. Where is she? Do you know what state they were in? They were like in Alabama. And that is recorded. That's on tape somewhere. But...
because I would not mind doing an experiment with you to prove that this exists for this.
Now,
I think that kind of stuff is really cool. That
was really cool. Now, that spirit, her name was Deborah. I allowed her to pull from me. I laid down. I said, take all you got. Take it, take it, take it. As long as I'm laying down. And that's what she did. And all she wanted to do was to cross. She couldn't cross with the boyfriend for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't get into detail. But then when she was done pulling, she said, thank you. And I saw, not an orb, but like an ectoplasm.
Yes, I do. I know all about that
So
stuff.
I saw that. She said audibly out loud to me, thank you. And I saw the feathery, and she was gone. The person who lives in the house actually got mad at me because she moved on. So,
yes, have you? That's another instance. Have you ever gotten kind of other people get different feelings, like mad or angry or sad, because after you finish with your work? If I had a spirit in my house that was malevolent or anything, I'd probably want it out of here.
Well, that's the case of the woman with the ghost box. She was really not malevolent. She was fine. She just wanted to cross, but she couldn't find her way. And he wanted to keep investigating. And I said, it's not fair. I made this deal. She would act up, use my energy, so you could get some of your evidence, because you got incredible orbs, too. Then she wanted to go. So, in all fairness, I did what I was supposed to do.
I imagine some of your clients could either have mixed feelings or...
Well, they have mixed feelings, and also I have to say the media and the television shows, Long Island Medium, and all these shows affect a lot of things that go on.
Yes, a lot of people do not. They think this is... I was talking to a case this week, and they kind of hinted that they didn't want cameras and other stuff going on, and we had to explain to them we're not like on TV. We don't have that kind of equipment. We don't have that kind of thing going on.
Right. So started to, with some of the cases that I work on, I started to ask that question, like, do you watch a lot of ghost hunting shows on television?
I watch them. There's some that I have favorites, like Ghost Adventures, but I don't watch them. Some people watch them as if it's
incessant.
It's like a religious thing
Yes.
for them to do. For me, it's something to watch. I learn from some of the things they do. I take in what knowledge I do pick up. I watch for maybe the excitement of the ghost hunt, maybe. You know, like some people watch it so they can become ghosts. I don't do that. I watch it for media and entertainment.
The thing is they have the children watching these. I'm children, and I get so upset. I'm like, that's just crazy.
Well, my daughter used to get a laugh out of it when the people get scared and run and stuff, and she used to just laugh and, you know.
They're naturally sensitive, but most of them grow out of it at a certain age.
Is this like, you know, somebody being in a jury selection, and if you are like biased or you watch this stuff or whatever, it kind of shows like where you are already? Like you could open yourself up to something, being
Yes, you
so
can.
into that.
Children are exceptionally vulnerable to be opened up because they don't know and don't understand. And I guess because I'm from a different generation, we didn't have any shows and none of this was talked about. But my son is 23. He's also gifted, but in a different way, and he chooses not to. He can see orbs with the naked eye, apparitions, but he cannot communicate.
What, was your husband also a medium?
No, he wasn't. So, but like I said, since my son, and I never went to him when he was a little boy, I said, oh, do you see like a ghost? You know? It's anything.
Like, how would you do that unless he came to you, you know?
Right.
Like,
well,
Mom.
he used to come to me and say, you know, I saw a man outside and he threw my ball back at me and he had no legs. He just saw the upper body. But, you know, sometimes when a ghost does manifest, they can't manifest fully because they don't have enough energy, so you only see part of them.
Yeah.
And I've seen apparitions, you know, they all manifest differently.
Now, when you say manifest, you actually see the human form, the ghost form, the apparition-like thing, or?
I've seen them, and I've never seen a black mist. I've seen white forms walking around. Now, this is just me, like, not reading or doing anything. Seen them as people, but around them they have like a white aura. I see their face, and when I was young, and they used to talk to me. You know.
Now, when you read, do you see it differently than when you're not reading?
When I'm not reading, what I have learned to do is just not pay attention to the noises that I hear, because I'm not going to be flipping out over, and I hear noises, doors opening, closing, and footsteps and talking. Just don't want to be bothered.
Do you listen to music a lot?
I really love music.
See, okay. That's good to know, because I do the same thing. It shuts everything off.
I mean, I just can't be bothered. It just gets annoying because I think my son is home, and he's not home. You know, so, but when I'm reading, also, like my son said to me, Mom, you know, when you do a lot of reads, the house is very active.
So what do you do for yourself? I mean, you have to, like, cleanse your house, or?
Well, I just pray.
Now, can ghosts come through with you to your house?
Oh, sure, if I wanted them to. I mean, if they really, really wanted to bother me, that's what they would do.
that come to your house and bother you.
Have you ever had that happen where one
Yes,
tried to...
I did. I'm going to tell you what happened. I took a picture. I went to Virginia and I took a picture of a Confederate soldier's grave. Take those types of pictures. Not unless you wig. You're okay.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is I took a picture with the unknown soldier, and I didn't realize that he was following me for years because, and he haunts my bathroom, of all places. And I had another medium say, do you know that there is a soldier, now she didn't know anything, and she says that he feels very dirty. He is really dirty looking, and he will not cross. He won't go.
Really?
So how can I help him?
So,
I just told him, please don't make it too cold in here. That's all.
so he's like more or less like welcome in a way.
Well, he won't cross, and he stays in that area because he's drawn to the water. And I also have a pool in the backyard, so he's been seen by a little boy by my pool and outside the bathroom door when I'm in the bathroom. A little boy has seen him.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now, is one better than the other, like adults and children, and do you focus on one on the other more than the other, or do they come more than the other?
Well, here's the thing. When it involves a child, automatically, because I'm a mother, that level, I get like really angry as to, and I've had a lot of cases where spirits have been bothering children, and I mean, off the charts bothering. You know, they can't sleep, and the whole house is in chaos, and I automatically would help the child first.
Right.
And see what's going on. But then again, there's always a reason why something is bothering that child.
Yeah.
And it really gets me angry if I have the parent and I'm like, what are you doing? You're doing the Ouija, you're doing the boards, doing this, what are you doing? You know, it becomes, and now I'm working, say if I'm doing, I had a case, and I was working with the team. And so she wasn't telling me the truth, but I knew what she was doing, but she was telling the team the truth. And I said, I really can't be involved with this because this is too much going back and forth. And, you know, basically, she wanted to have him exercise with the child, but if she had to stop what she was doing.
And that's hard. That's a bad habit to get into when you're a teenager, you know?
Right. But I would always, if somebody with children, I automatically would help them first.
Now, do you see children as children or adults? Another question from the room.
Depending on the age of the child.
And I think what they're talking about is some children could die and come back as adults.
Oh, are we talking a reincarnation?
No, they're talking about an actual child's death, but their ghost is an adult.
Okay, so...
Now, I've heard this sometimes happening, but, you know.
Yes, okay, the aging of a person when they die. If you die, you can be any age you want. But, as far as I know, as far as children, sometimes they get older, and sometimes they stay the same. I don't see that many children from the other side. It's always usually adults.
Okay.
But I do see people who died when they were like 80, and yeah, of course they want to be like 30 again. So they're going to show me themselves as 30. And it's very confusing because then, okay, so you're getting the habits of the person, and then I'm channeling the person. I'm getting the habits of some things they said, but they're showing me them when they were young.
I've always told that whatever age you die is what age you come back. However, children could come back as adults. Now, what you're telling me is somebody could die 100 years old and come back as 10 years old.
Right, in spirit form, yeah. They could be any age that they want to be.
That's very. I mean, I've heard of stuff like that, but you're the first person to actually confirm it as in a psychic level.
Because when I saw my father, he was dressed like he was from the 1950s. And he said, I could be any age I want to be. Then I really started getting into readings, and I saw the people were, I just tell the person who I'm reading for now, oh, I see your mother, but she's showing me when she was young, and this is what she liked to do, and this is where she lived, and that kind of thing.
So what you're telling me is a child ghost on a case could actually be an adult.
Exactly. If you pick that time to go back to, because that was a very happy time in your life, or B, a very traumatic time, depending what they want to show the medium. You know, if you have somebody who suffered serious child abuse, they're automatically going to tell me that. And I'm going to see it, unfortunately.
Oh, my goodness.
And then I relate some of that.
Now, can you see murders and all that as well, like with cases of death and murder and
the whole... I prefer not the death state. I know media stay at that state. I don't know why. I don't like to see it. I think that's kind of normal. I mean, you don't really want to see what it really looks like. I usually skip it. And I just say, well, this is what the person does. What difference does it make anyway? You know, it's not going to prove anything. I just personally don't like to see it, because then as a physical medium, I pick up what that person has in my own body, aches and the pains and stuff. So I'd rather just skip it.
Now, here's another question for you. If somebody, a ghost, wants to stay on a location and has fixed themselves, as it's called, to that location, are you able to unfix them from that location and help them pass on over to the other side? Or have they fixed themselves and you have to get through that barrier as well?
Okay, what happens in that case, yes, I can help them, because I actually have to, when they stop running away from me, and I could sit with them, and just saying this so it sounds okay, just when I sit with them one-on-one and I tell them, you don't live here anymore, you don't have to be here anymore. It's not your home anymore. That's what they're waiting for you. That's where you should go. And then sometimes they ask me questions. Sometimes they tell me. Now, there's a lot of spirits that are attached to the houses for some reason, because sometimes they put a lot of work into it, or they went through a lot in the house. But when I explain to them, if you take a look around, do you see anybody that you lived in this house with or that are here? No, they all passed. So when they realize that they are alone and that everybody is on the other side, they want to go.
So that makes your job a little easier. It was like hardly any convincing.
And they
it's
just want to go. And then sometimes they feel like they missed the chance to go when they died.
Now, what, in your opinion, would cause somebody to stay here?
Because being that we're human, we hold on to many human emotions, and those emotions make us stay here. Guilt is the number one. Person feels guilty, things they did to another person in life. Then you have fear. People are afraid to cross because of things they did or did to other people, where they're going. They were so comfortable where they lived, and they want everybody to come back to them. They don't understand that they have to cross over to go to them. They don't want change either, some of them.
Gina, I've seen people die, and sometimes it's a beautiful thing when they have all their family around them, and it's just they can sleep and they have peace. But what about those people that, like, die alone?
Well, you're never truly alone, because the thing is, you always have angels are with you.
Okay.
So nobody is alone. Maybe it's just because another human is there. nobody dies alone.
Mhm.
And also with dying, like when people die from these horrible diseases
Right.
that are so painful, like cancer,
Mhm.
they usually, the soul leaves the body before they actually die. Because usually they go into a coma and then they die.
Right.
That's the physical body.
Right.
I believe totally that they have left already.
When they go into the coma.
Right.
Okay.
They're gone.
Because I'm just a believer. It's like you live till you die. That's it.
Right. But it's sad too, because I used to think of people dying all by themselves, and then I
Yeah.
learned, well, nobody is ever alone.
Right. Because you think about when people are born, and there's like a whole bunch of people around sometimes when they're born. You know, like, hello, welcome to our world, you know?
Right.
But
You have
when.
to think of this way too. When we're born as a baby,
Mhm.
we're born with the only emotion that we know is love.
Right.
So when we die,
Yes.
that love comes back to us because we're exiting.
That makes a lot of sense. It really
Right.
does.
And it's just another stage. That's all.
It is. It is a life stage.
Right.
But it's scary. I mean, I always think like, you know, it's scary to die because if you've never really died before, it is scary.
It is
Yeah.
scary, but you don't even know what's really going on.
Right.
Well, Agnes, you bring up an interesting topic. Has anyone died before? If we're reincarnated, of course we died before. We just can't remember it.
No, you can't remember unless you go through. Remember, Wade and I were talking about the past life regression,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I went to a class and I experienced that. I thought it was a whole bunch of garbage too. Remember, I agreed with you.
Well, past life regression is.
Did you?
It's not necessarily all garbage. However, you have to go to somebody that's trustworthy.
Right.
It's just like hypnotism. You can't just go to somebody that's going to make you close your eyes and cluck like a chicken and dance.
No.
You have to go to somebody that knows what to do. You have to go to somebody that knows how to get you out of the state so your body does not remember that when you hear people snapping their fingers to cluck like a chicken and dance. And I've said many times on this show, and I've written about it, I know a lot of people who have had problems with hypnosis and regression therapy and other things of this nature. However, if it's done right, if it's done in a setting that's fair, then yes, it can be very beneficial. It's like astro travel, you know. My part of astro travel, I almost separated my soul from my body.
Right. You can't do that.
And my friend actually, pulled my body off of the bed, and my soul basically snapped back to my body, and I was sick for a week afterwards. But yes, I could have actually had my soul leave my body totally forever.
Right.
I did it wrong, and it was not cool at all. Now, in the room, we have some questions about, we've answered before. How do you see the ghost? I know you've answered them before, but for the people in our chat room on Blog TV.
Okay. I see the ghosts, the spirits, the way they want me to see them, so I could tell the reader this is what, this is what the person looks like. Her favorite dress. I do that a lot too. What they're wearing because it's their favorite clothes. Yes. Their favorite clothes and the way they look. This way I can relate that. Except if they go back to when they're younger. Remember we were just talking about how they were, if they portray themselves as like 30 years younger? The ghost. Okay. Because then I have to explain that there was a moment in their life that they, usually it's a significant moment when they meet their husband, meet their wives, or somebody passes or something like that.
Now, some of the questions are being repeated in the room, and I know you've answered you can always go on. You're probably listening to us by now on YouTube, but we do archive all of our shows as well, so people can listen to them at a later time. But for the people that are probably listening to this right now, they're probably listening to us on YouTube, or they had listened to us on Blog TV kind of deal. So most of the questions have been answered. However, there is one here. It's very interesting. Have you ever had a case that has been a total failure? Now, I realize you've said yes, you've made some mistakes, but I don't call a mistake a failure. So has anything really failed? Like it just has been really bad and...
Yes, one time I tried to help somebody, and I spoke to you about this, that she was possessed by a demon, and I did try to help her, and I couldn't help her, and I myself got very ill from it. We spoke about that.
Yes, we have. When something like that happens, whose fault is it? Because I see it sometimes as maybe the spirit not cooperating, not so much as yourself.
No, I did try to help. It's just that it was beyond me.
Yeah, because it's kind of like training a horse. If the horse doesn't want to stand up on its back legs and jump, no matter what you do, the whole training session's a failure.
Right.
However, it's not the trainer's fault. It's because the horse was uncooperative. In your case, most of the time, if it's a failure, it's because the ghost or spirit is uncooperative.
Well, sometimes that happens. You know, even when I do readings, they'll just appear and not talk. I mean, that doesn't happen too often, but I can just describe how I see this. Or if there's anything else I could get off of them, but that has happened.
Yeah. Now, if somebody wants to relate the question, have you ever had an evil spirit physically attack you?
No.
Another question is, what about, or do you believe in guardian angels?
Yes, of course I do, yes.
I do as well. I also believe that demons are fallen angels, so they're kind of a different... They're kind of a different subject, which we're working on up here to have a show on. Now, I'm trying to read through here. So this is pretty much it. Have you ever had an undeveloped spirit?
Undeveloped?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they mean. Or now the person in the room is saying a young or new spirit.
You mean like a baby?
Well, no, like somebody, like I was just trying to explain. So, an undeveloped spirit could be someone just died and the spirit is there in the room right now, and the body's still there laying there. The morgue hasn't taken away yet.
Yes, I do those readings, yes.
You do those readings, okay.
Yeah, I've done a couple of those, yes. Also, if people are looking for readings, it's very important, usually the date of their death. Yeah. Like around that time, the spirit is very strong. It's because it's their anniversary.
Okay. What about... This is an interesting topic. It may go along with this a little bit. What about spirits who try to mimic other people's voices? Relations and friends of family, and try to impersonate somebody else.
They can do that. An advanced spirit can do that. We were talking about this yesterday. Remember, Wade?
Yeah.
We talked about doppelgangers.
Yeah.
Doppelganger is a spirit who can mimic living people.
Yes, I haven't gotten much in on this. I know about these things. I just haven't gotten much on the show about it. For people that are listening, a doppelganger
is a German word.
Yeah, is basically a spirit that has adopted the likeness of another, to put it really in a nutshell. And they will do whatever they can to physically and emotionally and spiritually to make the person's life very uncomfortable. They can also come in as, let's say, your relative has died. They will come as your relative and try to hurt you through that spirit of your as your relative. A doppelganger probably is not really a spirit. It's probably an entity of some sort.
But they also mimic, I've met a lot of people, because I had this question in my group. I have had experiences with them where a spirit can mimic a living person. Like,
yes.
I heard my son calling me Mom. Will come in and shut the door and say, "Hey, Mom," and then I go upstairs and there's nobody there.
Yes.
But, I mean, and more than one person. I've heard my brother. He lives in Colorado. So this is what they do.
I've had that happen to me too.
Yes, it happens to almost everybody.
Oh.
And it's the weirdest thing. Nobody knows what it is, but it's.
I believe that demons do that, because if you go to the top of the stairs, then they can now have a reason for you to come to them, for them to attach themselves. That's my personal belief on this.
Okay, well that's okay.
And because I've had it a lot of times in churches. When I was a child and as an adult, I've had somebody call my name out. You go upstairs in the church, there's no one up there. You walk around seeing, hey, and then you answer yes. Well, you just said yes, giving an invite, noticing the demon now has a right to attach itself. Okay. However, it doesn't have a right because you never actually invited it. It on purposely, like I call it piggybacking. It'll literally probably jump on your back. You won't know it's there and kind of follow you around, and then when you go home, it'll know where you're going. Or somebody else's influence is doing it to hurt you through them.
Wow.
To get the child away. Like my mom would be cleaning as a child and we would hear footsteps upstairs or hey. I've even had candy thrown at me. And the person in our chat room, Debbie, has gone to this church too.
Okay.
So she knows what I'm talking about. By the front door had stairs going upstairs. Mm-hmm. Candy was always found thrown down the stairs. Now, either it was one of the janitors who played games, and he'd like to just find candy and just throw it somewhere on a table or something. We don't know why, or it was a demon. Now you would go upstairs for the candy or something, and then I was away from my mother, who then I was more prone, or maybe it would then jump downstairs and try to go after my mom.
Wow.
Now, some of these things I have been lucky that nothing has ever seriously happened, but I've heard of things happening in that fashion that are called doppelgangers. And that they will mimic people.
Something that's familiar to you.
I've even heard my friends tell me that I've called them on the phone. Will experienced this one time of a phone call directly from my phone with my voice in the background, and it hung up.
Wow.
Now, do I believe that a spirit could go through a phone line and enter somebody's house?
Absolutely.
Not necessarily.
Oh, wait, excuse me.
That's what I said.
Hey, since I have received phone calls from the dead.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
but I meant actually physically traveling down the line and then exit into your home. Now, phone calls from the dead are the dead actually speaking through the phone lines, using them as a medium of communication. Phone lines, walkie-talkies, set up a CB mic, hold the mic down with a rock or wait, and you could hear the voice on the other end. Right. What I'm talking about is actually the ghost going into the phone, traveling down the phone line, and coming out the other end.
Okay.
I don't believe that would be possible. There's too many ands. If an electrical surge happened, if the phone line came out to nothing, if someone made a phone call, it could actually trap the spirit in that energy cycle of the phone line. So I don't really think that would happen. But I've heard stories like that, where somebody would call somebody and their house would then be haunted. However, with demons, I imagine maybe they could do whatever they want. Now, it's a very tricky And there's no way to really prove unless you send a demon down the phone line, and that's kind of really something I don't advise anybody doing.
Right.
I've done research into demons, and I'm very careful on what I do.
Of course, as you should be.
But that's very interesting you bring that up. Phone conversations from the dead, of where your dead relatives use the phone as a way of communication.
That's very interesting.
You've had these before? I mean, have you communicated that way and stuff?
I've had 2 happen to me in my whole lifetime. And the first one that happened to me was a woman was here, and she's an old friend of the family. And her husband had passed away maybe about 7 years earlier. And she was, they were a very happy couple. She was very much in love with her husband. And she was crying. We were all talking about him, and the phone rang. And I answered it, and it was all that static, that white noise.
Yeah.
Okay, and I heard all this white noise, and I heard, hello, 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 and it was his voice.
Yeah.
And I got so scared. I said I was a kid, and I hung up the phone. But then, since then, it only happened another time, and nobody was home, and the phone rang and rang, and when I picked it up, I heard the same kind of white noise, and I got scared and hung up.
Gina?
Yes.
This happened to me one time. I was talking to a family member about a ghost in their house, and I had a brand new cell phone, and during the course of the conversation, my cell phone had a stroke and never recovered.
Really?
Yeah, like it just killed it.
Well,
I've
heard
never
that
had
they
that.
like to really manipulate cell phones. I haven't had that happen to me because I would get awfully mad. But no, that hasn't. Just that. I mean, I totally believe you because, I mean, I've even spoke to people that had messages on their answering machines from dead relatives. So.
Because we were talking about the ghost that was in the house.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, kapow,
Right.
And
well,
never.
Because you brought it, you were talking about the ghost.
Right.
And they actually, most of the time, they like that attention.
But
some of them like attention, some of them don't want it at all.
But I just thought that was very odd, and I have not used that phone since because it's impossible.
Yeah.
It just totally diseased it for life. It's done.
No, I've heard of things happening through TVs.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah.
Static will happen, and somebody will appear and say a message through a television.
Right.
But I don't know if now I'm not too familiar with phone calls from the dead. It's not a subject I really have studied. I have, of course, in my line of work, I know about it. It's just nothing I focused on. What my theory is they use the phone line as a way to communicate, just like they would use a digital recorder.
Right.
Right, that's correct.
A way for their voice to travel down a system of communication. It could even be a microphone. It could be a loudspeaker. I've heard of things like that happening in bars that were haunted, where the thing would come on and they would hear voices through the speakers, and they have no idea who it was.
Right.
Or another popular thing is the baby monitors. When you turn them on.
Yeah.
You can hear voices through those. I mean, I do.
Yeah, I've heard of that one time, but I swear it was probably the next door neighbors to the wall or something. I'm kind of skeptic on that.
I have heard it. I have a ghost box that was given to me as a gift. I don't even use it. I use it like once in a blue moon. I don't even want to put it on.
I'll take it if you don't want it.
Yeah, because they're like, hello, and it's just like too much going on.
I'll take it if you don't want it.
Or walkie-talkies. Right? Walkie-talkies, too.
Well, there's an old system that was used back in like the 70s and 80s. when paranormal investigations was kind of new. That you would take a CB radio, put a rock or a weight on the dispatching microphone or some weighted rubber band around the mic, and then ask if anybody in the room could talk. Somebody was on the other end of the CB. I've tried it, and it's not very successful because the antenna wavelength would have to meet the other antenna. But it's kind of like a radio type frequency. I have heard police radios go off. I have heard radios like walkie-talkies, like at Walmart for places that I've been, have gone off. And
That's
voices
very amazing. That's
on the other
interesting.
end that nobody knew what they were.
Right.
But this technology that we have today, a lot of the spirits may not know how to manipulate it. I mean, if you think about it, your cell phone could in fact be a type portal, like for speaking through, like your phone could be from the other side to you.
If you open yourself
However,
up to
the
that.
energy in a phone is directed through the phone line, which can be dispersed. Your cell phone was directly into it. The only other thing that it would go to is a satellite.
Right.
Therefore, that's probably why it destroyed your cell phone, because the energy was too much.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause it was just
But
really
however,
bizarre.
if the energy is too much on one end, the other end that it's talking through must be more than the energy at the other side. So if somebody's talking to me right now on my cell phone here, the other side where it's coming from
must be insane.
like you said, must be huge.
Right, because it was enough that, it affected a lot of people in that house.
Now, I've heard things, manipulations of devices like radio signals, but they don't have the type of radio anymore where they're all digital now. They're not signal orientated where they had the little dial you turned. You could put it on white noise and hear stuff through that, but they don't have those kind anymore. So on old radios, things would come through. But some of this stuff, you really can't prove it. I've seen it on my own digital radio. In my own car, a fire truck went by, and I heard the whole conversation on the radio. So how, with today's technology, like I said, it may be impossible for it to happen, but I'm not scratching it off the list of things that would happen. Although I'm not also going to take, to manipulate a phone, you have to have one end speaking to the other.
That's exactly what happened.
So if you can track where that number come from and find out what was happening, you could find out what happened. Now you can.
Yeah.
Right.
I've also had numbers where somebody has spoke on the phone, and I called back the number, and it hasn't been in existence since 1970. I've had that happen, but that was once in my whole life.
Right.
I had no idea to explain what it was. I don't know why it happened. It was when we first moved in here. Maybe it was a fluke in the line, maybe something else. We don't know. We don't know what it was. Still to this day, we have no idea what it was. The line in my room where it happened is no longer workable. So the maintenance, I guess, took it out of the wall or something when they did some work. So that's for that topic. Now, a lot of people don't realize what is going on. They don't really know what is happening. To my knowledge, I am not even sure if anything is out there that can be used to prove the phones do that and to prove cell phones do that, other than the device of the phone and cell phone and walkie-talkies or anything itself,
Right, right.
Now, some other questions in the room. We're getting close to our time here, so we're going to ask one more question, and that is, what does a case involve when you're on it, like the full case? In other words, do they contact you? You agree to work with, say, how does it happen? Like you're contacted, you contact us, we go to the investigation, you're then in contact with us. What is the process of the case?
Well, the process, as far as like when they work with me, is usually there's two ways to do it. It's either before they started their investigation,
yeah,
or it's after they did the investigation.
I think we lost.
All right, this is what it is. There's two ways that they do it. Either they go on the investigation first, or there's before the investigation. If it's after the investigation, then I look at the pictures and I do the read. I don't know anything about whatever happened. Then what they do is they read my reading and they say, the homeowner would really like to speak to you. And then I speak to the homeowner. Then I take it from there.
So you're involved with the, let's say, property owner, business, home, whatever it is.
Right.
And you're involved with the investigation group.
No, and then if it happens before the investigation, what I do is I tell them what I feel during the reading, what part of the area of the building or the home they should really concentrate on and why. And then they let me know after what happened, after the investigation.
So, have you ever had a case where you knew something was bad there or good there, and they immediately had to know? How would you contact them about this?
Well, it depends if I have contact. You mean with the group or the homeowner?
Yeah, the way you said is that you do your part, they do their part, and then everybody kind of puts a report together.
Right, it's usually through emails, or through telephone, or through Facebook. That's how we usually do it.
So a lot of your work is through your Facebook.
Most of it, or else emails.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten something where you said, "Oh my, this has to be investigated"? A spirit come to you?
Yeah.
No,
I have, yes. Or I say this is not a good area. This is kind of dangerous. But usually most teams have psychics on their team.
Yes, we don't right now.
Right.
In this area where we are, we have used them, but we don't per se have somebody that has the title of psychic.
Right. So,
and our team doesn't use titles, so somebody could be psychic and just not have that title for the team psychic,
Right. So sometimes they go over. That's another tricky thing too, because if they have a psychic medium on the team, then they don't want that person to know that I'm reading.
Yeah, which I think is wrong, because everybody involved in the case should know what's going on.
I think it's wrong too. I think it's wrong to put feelers out. But if you see a family that needs help, then what? Then it's your call. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if I could help a family, and if the other psychic medium didn't see what I saw, then I'm going to help the family.
Yes, I believe helping people is the first step.
Right, so that's
they come to you for help.
Yeah, they do. Agnes is very right. They come to you for help, and that's what you should do, is help them to the best of your ability. I mean, sometimes, clients will ask a little too much, but I always try to emphasize we're here to help as best as we can with the tools we have and the contacts we have, and I've never seen an unsuccessful case yet that we were not able to help.
Right.
I try to help them no matter what. I mean, I've been to some cases where maybe nothing came up, but maybe it was something else. Maybe it was the pipes that was rattling, like the case that we did where they had pipes rattling and the floorboards were not settled and the foundation was off, so things would roll certain directions.
Right.
So there was a real meaning to what was happening. It wasn't necessarily paranormal. But I felt good about it because I got to help them. I got them to understand what's going on. They never sold their house. They're doing very well to this day.
Right.
And to me, if I could help somebody no matter what it is, then that's my job. That's why I'm here. You know, just because it may not be paranormal, I'm still there to help them with the problem. They came to us with a problem, and we helped them solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know. Okay, well, this show's been very well.
Gina, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was good to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming, and I would like to have you again sometime in the future.
Oh, anytime. Just let me know.
And do you have a email you would like to give out for people to contact you?
Well, they can use my regular email, which is babyggcat@yahoo.com.
Okay.
Or you could contact me through Facebook.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for being on the program.
Okay, thanks, guys. Great time.
Yes, it was.
Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks, that was Gina. Our good friend Gina was our guest tonight. If anybody has any questions or anything, we always like you to write to us, theparanormalworld@yahoo.com. And remember our blogtv.com/people/the paranormal world. We're here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We also have a YouTube and Facebook if you'd like to go up on those two. You're probably listening to us right now on YouTube anyways. Mm-hmm. So this has been a wonderful show. We thank our guest and we thank everyone for listening.
Have a good night. Bye.